This is F1.
F1 rocks.
This is Formula One.
Well, I've got to tell you, Gary and I last night were WhatsApping each other throughout the whole of the United States Grand Prix. Gary, it's like 12 hours after the event or whatever, and I'm still marveling at what an incredible race that was.
Yeah, it was fantastic, but we've had a couple of Grand Prix, as you know, in the US, but last night the cars, just even on TV, looked fast. Yes, a difficult track. There was racing at the front. There was racing almost all the way down the field. Wherever you looked, it was just frenetic action all the way through. And I think, as we spoke about in our show, in the build-up to the race as well, you don't need any more promotional or marketing because Formula One is just looking after itself right now.
I agreed. It was just, I love what you say. Those cars look ridiculously fast. I mean, that circuit is number one, I think, one of the best circuits out there on the calendar. I know they're going to retire, Gary, because the MotoGP bikes had issues, and you could see even the cars even had some issues on there. I mean, it's the one thing is retard, no problem, but don't lose that authenticity of this tire degradation, because that tire degradation was a big factor, and that's what we need in Formula One. We need those tires to actually go off. We need strategy calls that have to be taken, and that's what USA gave us last night.
Oh, it just in heaps. It gave us that, and the reality was you weren't sure who actually had the right strategy. Was it Red Bull and Max that had the right strategy? Was it Hamilton that had the right strategy? I'll be honest with you. When I saw Hamilton catching him towards the end there, he got held up by the traffic and lost him a couple of seconds. I thought, well, listen, maybe Lewis got this because he's on the older tire with a lot more laps on it, and it's going to fall off. And geez, I mean, he just sort of got Hamilton in there to the point where Hamilton was really also pushing and using his tires. And then Max, that's when you saw the genius of Max, in my opinion, on older tires at that particular time in the race, and then just managed to open up that gap where at the areas of the track he needed to, and kept Lewis Hamilton behind. And, again, I mean, listen, I rate Hamilton as, he's not the 7-time world champion for nothing. And Max Verstappen, a driver that, I'm not going to say kid, a driver that we all know we knew was going to be quick, but I mean, he's just also an exceptional talent.
Yeah, I think that's what last night showcased was these two incredible drivers fighting for a championship, both of them going hell for leather. Fortunately, they didn't touch at turn one, which could have happened. But now, Gary, listen, turn one in Austin, I don't recall any person on pole position who started has gone into turn one in the lead. And surely they got to move pole to the inside of the circuit as opposed to the outside of the circuit. Being in P2 seems to be the best place.
Well, it seems like it, but normally you'd think that the cleaner line is going to be the grippier line, and that would have been the outside of the. So, I don't know. We just got to. But Max didn't. Whatever it was, Max didn't get a good start. Sure. But again, the opening laps were like, wow, it was just really everybody going for it. And then, of course, necessitated their call, and Red Bull did their thing, and it worked out well for them. But you can see by the way, both the drivers got out their cars last night. Yes, Max was obviously a little happy he'd won the race, but I think both drivers knew that they'd just driven a phenomenal Grand Prix. You could see it. They knew, and I think there's got to be a big element of respect between the two drivers there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, they've got to play the psychological game. They're not going to go and hug each other. But I agree. I think they both came out there and went, man, that was a race. this was the first race that we've seen, Gary, also in a long time where Max has needed help, and he had the help from Perez. Yes, we'll talk about how Perez fell off at the end, but they called in Max, and Lewis then had clean air and he started pumping in a few laps. But then all of a sudden they called in Perez, and Mercedes had to react, and all of a sudden it worked for Red Bull, and that was key. And they surely now have to say, Sergio, no matter what you do, you have to be in that top 4 in qualifying from now until the end of the year.
There is no doubt, and that's what he's there, and that's the job that he's being paid to do. I think nobody's under any illusion that Sergio Perez went there to win a Grand Prix. Sergio Perez went there to be an Eddie Irvine and support Max Verstappen. I think it's as simple as that. But, we've seen it's worked for Mercedes before. I can't remember which Grand Prix it was exactly, but when Bottas put the pressure on Max, and, it knocked him off, out of kilter in terms of the strategy. No. But yes, so that Perez's job is as important, maybe not as glamorous, but as important as actually winning as Max's job.
Well, I mean, listen, after the start that Max had and had running wide at turn 1, going into 2 and 3, Perez had the run on him or whatever and just backed off and said, "It's fine, go Max." Yeah. And it was wonderfully called by Red Bull, and also it got to a point going, well, 8 laps difference in the laps, is Lewis going to be able to catch? And I mean, even Boddington from Mercedes sat there and he said it's going to come down to the last 3 laps, and it's amazing. It came down to the last 3 laps, as well as Schumacher, Raikkonen, and I think it was still Alonso at that stage. Back in was one of them. But
we can't forget about Yuki Tsunoda. Sorry, I'm butting in here. Yuki, I mean, didn't do himself any favors within that Red Bull camp last night. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you sit there and say, Yuki, you are actually part of the same organization. You really need to pay attention. Gary, before we carry on about Max and Lewis, because I mean that was just something quite phenomenal. United States, Texas, record crowds. Just seeing crowds back watching Formula One in that kind of capacity, the atmosphere. Never mind the pit walk and the grid walk. We don't want to get into that. But what an electric atmosphere, and the appreciation the Americans have for each of the drivers. So if Lewis puts in a lap, the crowd would cheer. Perez put in a lap, the crowd would cheer. Max put in a lap, the crowd would cheer. I found that incredibly mature from a relatively new Formula One United States audience.
Yes, but I think they've got to see that as a massive success. I mean, they've tried for years to get into America, and I think now it's really starting to happen. And you've got the other big names, big sporting names in the United States that are also starting to, watch Formula One. You've got NASCAR drivers that are buying into Formula One. They're really for the first time starting to get into the market. And you know what? Maybe it's because they've got Americans running the show now. They know how to get into that market a little bit better than maybe even Bernie did back in the day. But for sure, it's working now. We've got Miami coming on song, I think, next year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
as well. There's in America. Listen, we all know what America and what the market is, an important place to be. But the last time was great. But just to see, but no masks, I've got to say, it's nice to see people living their lives like normal as it can be. That was fantastic as well.
Yeah, no, exactly. Sergio Perez, a brilliant 3rd position for him, although he was 41 seconds down the road. Your dad actually mentioned to me prior to him actually getting to the car, he had a proper running stomach. So too much Mexican food, perhaps. Then his water bottle didn't work after the first lap. So, I mean, this man was totally dehydrated and still managed to hold on to 3rd position. So an exceptional drive from him. He would have been very happy considering how unwell he was.
Yeah, listen, I mean, a hot Grand Prix, we spoke about how difficult it was to drive at the circuit. No, listen, these guys, we all know, we've spoken at length about how fit they are and what needs to happen for them to perform. He certainly wasn't optimum last night at all. So, I don't think it would have given him 40 seconds odd to go, be at the front of the field. But, maybe it would have been a little bit sort of more productive in the Hamilton Verstappen strategy call along the way.
Now, listen, there was one part of, we actually hardly even saw him. Charles Leclerc, to me, was outstanding. I mean, he beat McLaren hands down. No, they weren't anywhere near him. And I mean, he actually, in a way, kept, yes, we know Perez had issues or whatever, but he kept Perez honest. And, you know, we did say on Thursday, watch out for Ferrari. Had they not messed up Sainz's pit stop, Ferrari could well have had a fourth and fifth.
The pit stop, but I think the qualifying, you know, they hinged their bets on Saturday afternoon, and I think that, you know, that came back to haunt them last night. And, you know, Sainz started on the softer tire, the red tire. But, you know, at that point in time, you can understand what, you know, why they were going to do it. But it's good to see the car going quick, and they are in this fight with McLaren. McLaren have been fantastic. So, you know, they've won Grand Prix, as we've seen in Monza and what have you. So I don't think you can discount, as you said, what Charles Leclerc did last night, racing against the cars that are ahead of him, that are unfortunately right now in a different league.
Yeah, very, very much so in a different league. Bottas brought out maybe those maladies that Mercedes has when it comes to following. They haven't fixed that up yet. Lewis, yes, is a different kind of animal. Let's just put that out there. But Mercedes, I mean, we know that car has had the pace during the course of the weekend. He really struggled to get through any kind of traffic, and it was others making errors that actually promoted him up into fifth position.
Yeah, and as you said, it's something we've seen with Mercedes-Benz a lot of the time. You know, they haven't been good in traffic a lot, and whatever the reason for that is. I know Brundle spoke at length last night about the diffuser and just how they're loading it up, etc. Not too sure from where we sit right here, but yes, the fact of the matter is difficult to overtake. But, you know, Bottas, you also got to ask yourself the question now. You know, he's on his way out of the team. You know, is he going to be as hungry as Perez is, for example, to work with Hamilton and fight for the championship?
Yeah, I think it is something, and I'm sure that it stirs and tickles in his mind as well. Listen, the two oldest guys on the track last night, Alonso and Raikkonen, what a battle between the two of them. And listen, we know Kimi's going, Alonso's going to stay, but Raikkonen has got the fight. I don't know what happened at the end where unfortunately he went off the track because he lost the points that he should have got. But that little battle between the two of them was just phenomenal.
Yeah, it was good. And I mean, Alonso as well, you know, you could just see really drove that Alpine, drove the wheels off it last night. The car wasn't quick enough, but he did everything he could. And, you know, that until his teammate also had the issue, the rear wing, which is quite interesting. I suppose we'll get to the bottom of this in time to come to see what was actually going on with those two cars, because it seems that they both retired with the same problem, being rear wing, which is quite a scary thing to sort of think about. But Alonso also, I really drove well last night.
Yeah, I mean, there was exceptional. Vettel coming through the field, and Tsunoda getting the point as well. AlphaTauri, Gasly, and just, I mean, he nearly didn't even start the race. So that's two, I think, in a row that he's had. No, 2 out of 3 that he's had a bad one. But what a race from start to finish. The strategy calls. I sat in front of the TV just sitting there going, you just cannot call it. Watching the timing screens and going, oh, he's gone green. Oh, geez, on fresher tires. Yes, you expect it to happen. It was the best American Grand Prix I've ever seen.
Well, listen, it was a great Grand Prix, you know, bottom line. And, you know, last year, for example, we looked at Formula One, we looked at MotoGP, and I'll be honest with you, I did enjoy MotoGP more last year because the racing was different. It's different. But, you know, it's when you've got Formula One, which is the pinnacle of the sport, that, you know, 4 wheels, yes, admittedly, but it is the pinnacle of motorsport. Gee whiz, when you've got a battle like this going on, I mean, it just ignites something in everybody, and you just get the sort of reaction you had there. I mean, as you said, America, yes, they've cracked the market, but it's still America and still new to them. But the support and the understanding of what was going on was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, it was something very, very special. And I think it's something that I'm just sitting and going, oh, no, I can't believe we've got to wait 12 days before the next one. And then at least we've got three in a row. But Gary, going forward, going into Mexico, it's only 12 points, you know. But the significance is Max knows now, I've just got to stay ahead of Lewis. We don't know which cars are going to suit which tracks, but the turnaround that Red Bull had from Friday in America, in the United States at Circuit of the Americas, to what they managed to pull out on Saturday and Sunday was quite remarkable. And it comes down to who was missing at the last 2 races. Adrian.
Yeah, I have to believe that there's something in that, Sasha. You know?
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's just somehow on Friday, they were a second off the pace, Gary. You just sat there and went, whoa, okay. Turkey all over again. And yet they turned it around. And I mean, both of those guys, I mean, to see Perez up there pushing Max in qualifying was really exceptional to see.
Yeah, it was good. And also, you know, the spoke about Perez adopting his own setup for the car, not going down Max's road, sort of wholesale anymore. Maybe that's also helping him, whatever it is. But listen, it couldn't have come at a better time in the year, that's for sure, to get Perez up to speed.
No, they're going to Mexico. I mean, the crowd yesterday for Perez was it felt like we were in Mexico. So you imagine what Mexico is going to be like.
Yeah, did you see Carlos Slim going absolutely crazy there as well? I mean, so that was good to see. But you're right. I mean, so yeah, Mexico is going to be just, you know, mega. And listen, I feel for Sergio. What a great time to be getting what you're getting now, to be up there in this fight now. And it's fantastic.
Yeah, it was thoroughly brilliant. 5 races to go, Gary. Whichever way it goes. You know, we've had an outstanding season. We've been starved of this for a good 7 or 8 years, and this is making up for it.
No, there's no doubt about it. You know, you've forgotten about the crummy years, you know, the boring years, if you want to call it that. If you were not a Mercedes fan, then perhaps they were a little bit boring for you. But this is really just it's just setting the whole thing alive, you know. And you know, coming out of the pandemic and all this tough time that everybody's had, it's like really, this is really what everybody needed, you know. It's been really good. So really, I must say, I appreciate, you know, we alluded to it just now, watching these two guys racing the way that they are. I think you know, I think if you really just appreciate what's going on, I think it's something to behold for a long time. And to know that you're around watching, you know, two of the sports greats having a full go at each other.
Yeah, I think with those words of wisdom and knowledge, I think that's where we ended, Gary. We'll chat before Mexico. I can't wait. Sure, bring it on. Bring on the next.
Absolutely. Thanks for the chat. I was dying to have this chat today. I definitely couldn't sleep last night and woke up very excited about Formula One.
Yeah, exactly. Have yourself a great day, my buddy. We'll chat soon.
You too. Take care.
Ciao.
This is F1.
F1 rocks.
This is Formula One.